All right, welcome back, everyone. President Trump has taken aim once again at a black athlete, this time Lebron James. And the NBA star joins a growing list that also includes Marshawn Lynch, Steph Curry, and, of course, Colin Kaepernick. We have found no evidence Trump, as president, has ever called out a white athlete in a similar manner, certainly not on Twitter or publicly, to our knowledge. Trump questioned LeBron James's intelligence on Twitter yesterday after the NBA star criticized the president's divisive rhetoric in an interview with CNN. Well, back in November, Trump called for the suspension of Oakland Raiders running back Marshawn Lynch for protesting police brutality during the national anthem. And 2 months before that, Trump lashed out at Steph Curry by withdrawing his White House invitation to celebrate the Golden State Warriors and their NBA title. But the first black athlete to be attacked by Trump, of course, you may recall, is Colin Kaepernick. Not only has Trump repeatedly criticized him for kickstarting the NFL protests, but when the free agent was not picked up by any NFL team, well, Trump taunted him on Twitter, saying the quarterback was fired and advised him to find something else to do. Joining me now to discuss this, Vox reporter Dylan Scott, and we have two contributors from The Hill, Republican consultant Michael Singleton and Johns Hopkins University professor Wendy Osefo. Great to have all of you with us on this conversation. Wendy, let me begin with you because Trump was reacting to this LeBron James interview, and we're going to play you a soundbite from it. Take a listen.
What I noticed over the last few months, that he's kind of used sport to kind of divide us, and that's something that I can't relate to because I know that sport was the first time I ever was around someone white, and I got an opportunity to see them and learn about them, and they got an opportunity to learn about me, and we became very good friends.
So is it safe to say that LeBron should have expected a Trump reaction given the president's history and especially the tone of the point that LeBron was making there?
Yeah, given the president's history, I would say so. But again, as American citizens and as part of any democracy, the linchpin of our ability to critique any of our elected officials is why we consider ourselves one of the greatest nations in the country, in the world, right? But at the end of the day, what I think is really important for us to look and see here is that on and off the court, LeBron James has been a stellar athlete, a stellar role model. I mean, outside of the $8 million that he has done for this public school, he has also contributed millions of dollars to his own high school. However, for the president of the free world to sit here and criticize him and call him out by name is beyond the pale. We talked about, LeBron James. We talked about Colin Kaepernick. We talked about Stephen Curry being called out by the president. But let us also talk about the fact that Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, Eminem have also spoken about the president, but he has not said anything to them. So there is a racist undertone to this conversation, and we have to say what it is.
Yeah, I mean, some would say it's even more than an undertone, that it's just flat out racism, not just simply an
Absolutely.
undertone. Dylan, I know that you wrote a very interesting piece about LeBron increasingly wading into political waters. It certainly seems something that many athletes do as they grow in stature, grow in confidence, grow in position in their respective leagues. You call him the most important athlete in America. Explain why he has become that.
Well, I think it's a couple of things. First of all, and most importantly, especially as somebody who grew up 90 minutes south of Cleveland, he's an amazing basketball player, maybe the greatest basketball player of all time. It's usually a two-person conversation between him and Michael Jordan, and that sort of says it all about what he's actually accomplished on the court. The other thing is he hasn't been afraid to talk about politics. With him and Trump, it goes back as far as the 2016 election. LeBron stumped for Hillary Clinton. He appeared on stage with her. LeBron started criticizing the president more directly during the Charlottesville situation last summer, and then he has continued to speak out against the president, for example, when he talked about LeBron's rival Steph Curry and the visit to the White House. And so this is just, he has maybe the biggest platform in the world, and he has used it to talk about issues like racial justice and address politics head on.
Sure, Michael, there's an interesting theme about the way the president tweets about black athletes or black people in general that he's trying to criticize. He's always questioning their intelligence, their smarts. I think people who look into the historical context of that will say that that is very racist, that there's a lot of racist, there's a racist undertone in that kind of terminology to criticize black athletes. But it seems to go so well for his base or for those when he needs a distraction from all of the political mess that he finds himself in. Does that work, though, with his base?
No, Eamon, I think it does work because, Eamon, when you think about it, since he's been president, every single time there's been a groundbreaking revelation that's been extremely damaging to him and his administration. He always goes to these cultural wedged issues, from Kaepernick to Maxine Waters to others, to basketball players, etc., because this is like red meat to his base. But you know what's interesting to me about this is the president is constantly attacking the media, saying the media is dividing the people. When quite honestly, Eamon, if you look at the division, it's coming directly from the White House. I find it to be a bit ludicrous for the president to be attacking LeBron James and Don Lemon's intellect when the president, at least in my view, has a very difficult time putting together complicated statements. So that seems to be a bit of a critique that I think falls on deaf ears. But look, I think when you look at what's going on with the administration, from Helsinki, from Michael Cohen to the Mueller investigation, you look at what's going on in the 12th Congressional District in Ohio, where the president was just speaking yesterday. I think things around Donald Trump are beginning to cave, and we're seeing a president right now who's afraid and is not sure what direction to go. And I think that's very dangerous because he isn't someone who's very disciplined. Yeah, and as we mentioned, we couldn't find any record of the president criticizing any white athletes, as we also heard from Wendy there talking about that. All he has is love and praise for people like Tom Brady and what have you, even sports owners in the NFL like Jerry Jones, who did criticize him or criticize that position and his involvement in some of these decisions. He didn't get criticized. He only got praised. Let me ask you, Wendy, about an interesting ounce of support, if you want to call it that came from the First Lady. She, Melania Trump, obviously, she had some kind words about the work that LeBron has been doing with this new school. Were you at all surprised that Melania, who remains relatively quiet on a lot of issues, weighed in on this particular one?
It seems like there continues to be division at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, whether it was earlier this week where we heard his daughter Ivanka saying that, the media is not the enemy. Now Melania is coming out and giving praise to LeBron James. But before we give Melania any brownie points for this, let us understand that she was also one of the people who championed the whole birtherism conversation when it came to Obama. So I think that she needs to move the conversation a little bit further with her own husband. It's okay that you're putting out a statement here, but your husband continues to be a bully time and time again, but you have this platform called Be Best. Well, for us to really be best, we need the leader of the free world to not bully people through Twitter. So let us not sit here and give her a pat on the back for doing what anybody who has any 2 cents should be doing.
Let me ask you really quickly, Dylan, you brought up Michael Jordan. He tweeted his support for LeBron James. Has the president and his tone in some of this criticism and these attacks against black athletes made it impossible for people like Michael Jordan, who have remained relatively quiet on issues of politics, to not simply just stand by on the sidelines and weigh into that?
Well, I think to somebody's earlier point, everything is about politics now, and the president is certainly responsible for making it that way. He has seized on, especially the protests in the NFL, but all kinds of issues political issues that have been raised by athletes. He has seized that as an opportunity to criticize those athletes and to apparently try to sow division. So I think he absolutely sees sort of a value in politicizing these sort of cultural things like professional sports, and I don't think we're going to see that stop anytime soon.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't look like it. In fact, last night, Randy Moss's induction to the Pro Football Hall of Fame drew quite a bit of attention for a powerful statement that he made. He was sporting a tie with the names of black and brown victims of police violence. In fact, here's what he told their families. Listen to this.
So, what I wanted to be able to express with my ties to let these families know that they're not alone. I'm not here, voicing, but by these names on my tie at a big platform as the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there's a lot of stuff going on in our country. And I just want to let these family members know that they're not alone.
So obviously an important statement there, sure, Michael. Police misconduct, obviously one of the reasons NFL players have been kneeling. Trump has made this about patriotism. Right. Is there any way at this point for players to get people to know why they are kneeling?
I think they have to continue to utilize their platforms. It's interesting because the president was just meeting with pastors at the White House about criminal justice reform, for example, and yet it would appear that he still doesn't understand the significance of why so many of these players are utilizing the platforms that athletes have attempted to do, going back to Muhammad Ali, going back to the Olympics, etc., where they have saw the issues that have impacted our community and they have utilized their status to bring attention to it. And I think they should continue to do so. But I think it's also also be coming on Donald Trump, who is the president, not just for the people who voted for him, but for the entire country to recognize that.
Yeah, he may even know, but decide to ignore it and just kind of make it about what he wants to make it about, which obviously is not the case. Dylan Scott, thank you very much. From Michael and Wendy, both of you guys sticking around for another block for me.